Marcus Cole was 12 years old and he had been living on the streets of Cincinnati, Ohio for 11 months. Before that, he had lived in a group home on the east side of the city. Before that, a foster placement that had ended when the family relocated to another state and couldn't take him. Before that, another foster home. Before that, a woman named Denise who had been his mother and who had died of a drug overdose on a Tuesday morning when Marcus was 9 years old and came downstairs to find her on the kitchen floor. He had called 911. He had waited on the front steps. He had watched the ambulance arrive and he had known, from the way the paramedics moved when they came back out, what the answer was before anyone told him. He had been in the system since that morning. The group home had been his 4th placement in 3 years. It was not a cruel place. The people who ran it were not cruel people. But it was underfunded and overcrowded, and Marcus had learned that in a place like that, the way to survive was to be quiet and capable and not need too much from anyone. He had aged out of the group home's capacity not by years but by circumstances, a complicated administrative situation that resulted in him being transferred to a new facility across town that had no open beds and a waiting list, and in the gap between one place and the next, Marcus had fallen through. It happened faster than anyone intended. It always does. He had been sleeping in the covered bus terminal on 5th Street. He had found a community center that served lunch on weekdays and a church that served dinner on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He had a routine. He had a system. He was 12 years old and he had a system for surviving, which said everything about what his life had asked of him. He went to school. This surprised people who found out about his situation. But Marcus had decided when he was 10 years old, lying in a foster bedroom that wasn't his, that school was the one thing that moved in a straight line regardless of everything else. You showed up. You learned things. Nobody could take what was in your head. So he showed up. Every day. In the jacket with someone else's name in the collar and the sneakers with the hole in the left toe. He showed up and he sat in the front row and he did the work. His teachers knew something was off. Kids in stable situations don't have that particular look. That specific economy of movement, the way some children hold themselves like they're conserving something. But Marcus had not told anyone. Because telling meant questions and questions meant the system, and the system had already shown him several times exactly what it could and could not do. So he managed. Quietly. On his own. Until a man named Gerald Brooks dropped his wallet outside a sandwich shop on a Wednesday afternoon in November. The diner was warm. This was the first thing Marcus noticed. Warm in a way that wasn't just temperature, the particular warmth of a place where people came regularly and felt comfortable. Red vinyl booths. A counter with spinning stools. The smell of coffee and bacon grease and something baking somewhere in the back. Marcus sat across from Gerald in a corner booth and held the laminated menu with both hands and tried not to look like he was reading it the way a person reads something when they are genuinely, seriously hungry. He was not entirely successful. Gerald watched him without watching him. He had a way of paying attention that wasn't intrusive. He ordered coffee for himself and asked Marcus what he wanted to drink, and Marcus said water and Gerald said, "Get whatever you want." It's not a trick. Marcus looked at him over the menu. Gerald looked back. His expression was straightforward. No agenda visible in it. Marcus ordered orange juice. When the food came, Gerald had a club sandwich, Marcus had the grilled cheese that Gerald had recommended plus a bowl of tomato soup because Gerald had said get whatever you want, and Marcus was hungry enough to test the offer. Gerald ate without making anything of it. They talked. Or rather, Gerald talked and Marcus answered, and gradually the balance shifted until Marcus was talking too and Gerald was listening. Gerald asked about school. Marcus said he liked math and history. Gerald asked why history. Marcus said, because it's just everything that already happened. It's already done. You can understand it. Gerald looked at him for a moment. That's a pretty interesting way to think about it. What do you do? Marcus asked. I run a construction company. Commercial buildings, mostly. Started it 22 years ago with one truck and a crew of 3. Did you always want to do that? I wanted to be a baseball player, Gerald said. Then I realized I was better at building things than hitting things and I adjusted. He picked up his coffee. What do you want to do? Marcus was quiet for a moment. This was not a question people asked him often. Or ever, really. I want to have a house, he said. Then, like he realized that wasn't quite the question, I want to be an architect. Design buildings. I draw them sometimes. He paused. In the margins of my notebooks. Can I see? Marcus reached into his backpack and pulled out a spiral notebook. He opened it to a page and slid it across the table. Gerald looked at the margins. Small, precise drawings. Buildings with detailed facades. Floor plans sketched in the corners with a ruler's worth of straightness despite being drawn freehand. Structures that showed someone who understood, instinctively and without formal training, how things went together. Gerald looked at them for a long time. These are good, Marcus. They're just doodles. No. Gerald shook his head slowly. They're not. I've worked with architects for 20 years. I know what good spatial thinking looks like. He slid the notebook back. These are genuinely good. Marcus took the notebook back and put it in his bag with the careful movements of someone returning something valuable. Gerald watched him. Marcus, he said. Where do you go after this? The table went quiet. Marcus looked at the window. At the street outside. He was calculating something, how much to say, what it cost, what it might get him, whether this man was what he appeared to be or something more complicated. He had learned to do this calculation quickly and accurately. Gerald waited. He didn't fill the silence with reassurances. He just waited. The bus terminal on 5th, Marcus said finally. There's a covered section. Gerald said nothing for a moment. How long? He asked. 11 months. Gerald nodded. He looked at the table. Then at Marcus. I have a question and I want you to know you can say no to whatever I suggest and I won't push it. He paused. But I'm not going to pretend I didn't just hear what you told me. That's not something I can do. Marcus looked at him steadily. What's the question? Gerald Brooks was 54 years old and had built his construction company, Brooks Commercial, from a single truck into a mid-sized firm with 40 employees and a reputation for doing clean, honest work on time and within budget. He had been married for 28 years to a woman named Carol who taught second grade and made aggressive amounts of food every Sunday and believed, firmly and actively, that the world got better one specific act of decency at a time. They had 2 sons, both grown. Derek, 26, who worked in the company. And Sam, 23, who was in graduate school for environmental science in Seattle. They lived in a house in the Oakley neighborhood. For bedrooms. A yard. A kitchen that Carol had designed herself and that was, by objective measure, the best room in the house. Gerald had grown up poor. Not homeless, but close enough to it in enough years to know exactly what it looked like in a kid's face. The specific economy. The watchfulness. The way certain children hold themselves like they're used to taking up a small amount of space. He had seen it in Marcus the moment Marcus held out the wallet. He called Carol from the parking lot of the diner while Marcus waited inside with a second glass of orange juice. There's a boy, Gerald said. 12 years old. He returned my wallet. He's been sleeping in the bus terminal on 5th for 11 months. He goes to school every day. He draws buildings in the margins of his notebooks and they're legitimately good. A pause. He has nobody. Carol was quiet for a moment. Where is he right now? In the diner on 4th and Vine. Bring him home for dinner, Carol said. We'll figure out the rest from there. This was why Gerald had married Carol. Marcus sat in the passenger seat of Gerald's truck and looked out the window as they drove through neighborhoods that got progressively quieter and greener. He had agreed to dinner. That was all he had agreed to. He had been very clear about this internally. Dinner. One meal. Then he would assess. He had learned to move in increments. Trust built in very small installments or not at all. The house was big without being enormous. A front porch with chairs on it. A maple tree in the yard that had gone full autumn red. Lights on inside. Carol opened the door before they reached it. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and the specific energy of a person who taught second grade, simultaneously calming and completely alert to everything happening in a room. She looked at Marcus the way teachers look at children. Directly. Without condescension. "Marcus," she said. "I'm Carol. Come in. It's cold." The house smelled like pot roast. Marcus stood in the entryway and took it in, not gaping, because he had learned not to show too much of what he felt, but absorbing. The pictures on the walls. The coats hung by the door. The sound of a television somewhere upstairs. The smell of something cooking for hours. The smell of a house where people lived. Carol showed him where to wash his hands. She set him at the kitchen table with a glass of water and kept cooking and talked to him the same way she probably talked to her second graders, conversationally, without pressure, letting him enter the conversation at his own pace. By the time dinner was on the table, Marcus had told Carol about history class and about his teacher Mr. Alvarez, who wore the same 3 ties on rotation, and about a building he had seen downtown that had an unusual corner treatment he couldn't stop thinking about. Carol had listened to all of it with genuine interest. Gerald sat at the head of the table and watched his wife work her particular magic and felt something settle in his chest. After dinner, Carol showed Marcus the guest room. Clean sheets. A window that faced the yard. A lamp on the nightstand. "You can stay tonight," she said. "Just tonight, if that's all you're comfortable with. No pressure about anything beyond that." Marcus stood in the doorway of the guest room. He looked at the bed. At the window. At the lamp. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. Carol considered the question seriously. "Because Gerald told me about the notebook," she said. "And because you ran half a block to return a wallet you didn't have to return." She paused. "And because nobody should be sleeping in a bus terminal. Especially not someone who draws buildings in their notebook margins." Marcus looked at her. "I'm going to need to tell my school," he said. "They think I live at a different address." "We can figure that out tomorrow," Carol said. "Together?" Marcus nodded once. He slept in the guest room that night under clean sheets with the window facing the yard and the lamp on the nightstand, and he did not sleep immediately. He lay there for a long time listening to the sounds of a house, the refrigerator humming, the heat coming on, the distant sound of the television turned low. Ordinary sounds. He had not heard ordinary sounds in 11 months. He was asleep before he finished thinking about it. Nothing was simple. Marcus was a ward of the state of Ohio. Gerald and Carol couldn't simply decide to take him in. There were systems involved, caseworkers, legal processes, background checks, hearings. Gerald called a lawyer on Thursday morning. The lawyer's name was Patricia Huang. She was direct and practical and told them exactly what the process looked like, how long it would take, what the challenges were. It would take months. It would require patience and paperwork and multiple meetings with people who were skeptical by professional necessity. Gerald said, "Tell me what to do and I'll do it." Marcus's caseworker was a woman named Diane Foster who had been doing this work for 15 years and had seen every version of the well-meaning adult who appeared with grand intentions and disappeared when the reality of the situation became complicated. She was not unkind. But she was careful. She met with Gerald and Carol twice. She spoke to Marcus privately, at length, in a room where she asked him direct questions and listened to his answers with the attention of someone trying to sort real from performed. She asked Marcus, "Do you feel safe with these people?" Marcus said, "Yes." "Do you feel pressured?" "No." "If you wanted to leave, do you believe you could?" Marcus thought about it. "Yes. I think I could." Diane looked at him for a moment. "Why do you trust them?" "He didn't ask me to explain myself," Marcus said. In the diner. He just waited. He paused. People who want something from you don't wait. They talk. Diane wrote something in her notes. The process took for months. For months of Marcus living in the guest room that gradually stopped being the guest room and started being his room, as his things accumulated in it: the notebooks, a library book, a poster of the Cincinnati skyline that Carol had bought without being asked and left on the dresser without making anything of it. For months of school every day, now from a real address, without the weight of managing a secret. For months of Sunday dinners and Gerald's terrible jokes and Carol's second-grade teacher energy applied to making sure Marcus had everything he needed without ever making him feel like a project. For months. And then Diane Foster filed her recommendation with the court. And the judge approved it. And Gerald Brooks became Marcus Cole's legal guardian on a Thursday afternoon in March, with Marcus sitting in a courtroom in a button-down shirt that Derek had lent him and Carol crying in the way she apparently cried at good things, efficiently and without apology. Marcus sat in the courtroom and looked at the document in front of him. He thought about a Tuesday morning when he was 9 years old and he sat on the front steps and watched an ambulance. He thought about for foster placements and a group home and 11 months in a bus terminal with a system for surviving. He thought about a wallet falling out of a man's pocket on a Wednesday afternoon in November. He thought about how one thing leads to another and how you cannot always see the line connecting them until you look back from somewhere better. He did not cry in the courtroom. He cried later, alone in his room with the door closed, briefly and privately, the way he did everything. Then he opened his notebook and started drawing. Marcus started at Walnut Hills High School in the fall. It was a magnet school with a strong academic program and a drafting and design class taught by a man named Mr. Torres, who had spent 12 years as an architect before transitioning to teaching and who had a specific gift for recognizing spatial intelligence in students and then refusing to let it go unaddressed. Mr. Torres saw Marcus's notebook in the second week of class. He asked if he could look through it. Marcus let him. Mr. Torres spent 10 minutes going through it. Then he closed it and handed it back and said, "You've been teaching yourself." "I guess." "From what? Books? Online?" "Mostly just looking at buildings," Marcus said. "And thinking about why they're built the way they are." Mr. Torres looked at him for a moment. "Stay after class on Friday," he said. "I want to show you something." What he showed him on Friday was a drafting table, professional software, and the beginning of a conversation about architecture that lasted the next for years. Mr. Torres connected Marcus with a mentorship program run by a local architecture firm. He pushed Marcus to enter regional design competitions. He wrote recommendation letters that were specific and detailed and genuine in a way that made admissions readers pay attention. Marcus won a regional student design competition in his junior year. The project was a community center design for an underserved neighborhood, functional, beautiful, built around the specific needs of the people who would use it. The judges wrote in their notes, "Shows unusual understanding of how spaces shape human experience. This student has the instincts of someone who has needed spaces to be right." Marcus read the feedback and understood exactly what they meant. Living with Gerald and Carol taught Marcus things that no classroom could have. It taught him what it looked like when two people had been building something together for a long time and still chose it. Gerald and Carol disagreed about things. They had different approaches to problems. They negotiated and compromised and occasionally said the wrong thing and apologized for it. This was new to Marcus. He had not seen this before. The ordinary mechanics of people who cared for each other navigating the ordinary frictions of a shared life. He watched it carefully. Stored it away. Carol taught him to cook on Sunday afternoons. She was a serious and opinionated cook who had clear beliefs about the correct way to do most things and communicated them cheerfully and without flexibility. Marcus learned that butter was not negotiable and that the difference between a good soup and a great one was time, and that cooking for people was a specific form of caring for them that didn't require words. Gerald taught him other things. How to look at a building and read what was working and what wasn't. How to run a meeting. How to shake a hand and look someone in the eye and mean it. How to show up consistently, which Gerald believed was 90% of what separated people who succeeded from people who didn't. He also taught Marcus, without explicitly teaching it, what it looked like when a man took responsibility for the things in front of him. Gerald did not complain. He did not make excuses. When something went wrong at the company, he addressed it. When he made a mistake, he said so directly. Marcus absorbed all of this the way he had absorbed everything in his life, carefully, completely, and with the specific attentiveness of someone who had learned early that information was survival. Gerald's sons received Marcus the way grown children receive unexpected additions to the family with some adjustment required. Derek, the older one who worked in the company, was initially unsure what to make of the situation. He came home for Sunday dinner 2 weeks after Marcus arrived and sat across from this quiet, watchful 12-year-old and wasn't entirely sure what to say. Marcus asked him what it was like working with his father. Derek blinked. Most people asked what the company did, not what it was like to work there. Honest? Derek said. Yeah. It's good. He's hard to work for because he has high standards. But he's fair. He does what he says he'll do. That's good, Marcus said. Like he was taking notes. Derek looked at him for a moment. Then he laughed. He wasn't entirely sure why. Yeah, he said. It is. Sam, the younger one in Seattle, called home every Sunday. He talked to Marcus on the phone for the first time 3 weeks after Marcus arrived. Sam was studying environmental science and had strong opinions about sustainable building practices, and when he found out Marcus was interested in architecture, a 40-minute conversation happened that nobody had planned. By the time Marcus was in high school, Derek was teaching him things about the construction side, materials, costs, what architects designed that drove contractors crazy and why. Sam sent him articles about green building and climate-responsive design. Both of them showed up to his design competition with handmade signs that they were both slightly embarrassed about and completely unwilling to put down. Marcus had not expected brothers. He had not expected any of it. Here is where we land. Marcus Cole is 20 years old and in his second year at the University of Cincinnati's College of Design, Architecture, Art and Planning, which has one of the best architecture programs in the country and which Marcus had applied to with a portfolio that made the admissions committee ask each other, where did this come from? It came from a boy who had been drawing buildings in notebook margins since he was 10 years old. It came from Mr. Torres and a drafting table and 4 years of being pushed. It came from Sunday afternoons looking at buildings with Gerald and understanding what worked and why. It came from having, finally, the space and stability to let what was already in him grow. He still has the notebook. The original one. The one Gerald saw in the diner on 4th and Vine on a Wednesday afternoon in November when Marcus was 12 and had a hole in his left sneaker and $400 in his hand that he had every reason in the world to keep. He keeps it on his desk in his dorm room. He doesn't draw in it anymore. He has better tools now, professional software, proper drafting equipment. He keeps it because it is the record of where he started. Because on the days when the work is hard and the program is demanding and the standards are high, he can open it and see the drawings of the boy who made them and remember that the instinct was always there. It was always there. It just needed room. On a Saturday in October, Gerald and Carol drive up to Cincinnati for family weekend. Carol brings food, of course she brings food. It is Carol enough for Marcus and his roommate's girlfriend and whoever else happens to be around. They sit in the common room of Marcus's dorm building and eat Carol's pot roast, and Gerald asks about the studio project Marcus is working on and Marcus explains it with his hands, the way he always does when he's talking about something he cares about, and Gerald listens with the specific attention of a man who has been looking at buildings for 30 years and finds this genuinely interesting. At some point Carol looks around the table at all these 20-year-olds eating her food and she gets the expression she gets at good things. Marcus sees it. He has learned to recognize it. Don't, he says. I'm not doing anything, Carol says. You're about to. She reaches across and squeezes his hand once, firmly, and says nothing. Marcus shakes his head. But he's smiling. Later, when Gerald and Carol are getting ready to drive back, Marcus walks them to the car. It's a cool evening. The campus is lit up, the kind of college campus evening that looks like it was designed to look like a college campus evening. Gerald stops at the car and turns around. He looks at Marcus. This 20-year-old who was 12 with a hole in his sneaker and a wallet that didn't belong to him. "You're going to design something important one day," Gerald says. "I don't mean famous. I mean something that matters to the people who use it." Marcus nods. He believes this. He has believed it for a while. "I know," he says. Gerald opens the car door. Then he stops. "Best decision I ever made was running after you on that sidewalk." Marcus looks at him. "I ran after you." "Well." Gerald smiles. "Good thing one of us did." He gets in the car. Carol waves from the passenger window. Marcus stands on the sidewalk and watches them drive away. Then he turns and walks back toward his building. He has a studio project due Thursday and a long night ahead of him, and he is, honestly and completely, exactly where he is supposed to be. Marcus Cole was 12 years old when he ran half a block to return a wallet that had $400 in it. He was cold and hungry and sleeping in a bus terminal, and he ran after a stranger to give back something that wasn't his. Not because someone was watching. Not because he expected anything in return. Because somewhere in Marcus, despite everything that had been done to him and everything that had been taken from him and every system that had failed to catch him when he fell, there was something intact. Something honest. Something that knew the wallet wasn't his and acted on that knowledge without calculating the cost. That one moment, that half-block run on a Wednesday afternoon in November, set off a chain of events that changed every day that followed it. But here is the thing. Marcus was already the person he was before Gerald saw him. The notebooks existed before the diner. The spatial intelligence existed before Mr. Torres. The integrity existed before anyone witnessed it on a Cincinnati sidewalk. Gerald and Carol and the guest room that became his room and the Sunday dinners and the design competitions and the university, all of it gave Marcus the room to become what he already was. That is what the right people do. They don't make you into something. They give you the space to become what you already are. Marcus Cole ran after a stranger to return a wallet. And the rest of his life began. If this story meant something to you, subscribe to Tale Vera and be part of a community that believes in the power of one good moment. Drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever done the right thing when no one was watching? Tell us your story. We read every single one. See you next time.